Chapter 16. In the Hawkshead, Hermione made no mention of Harry giving Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson for 2 whole weeks after her original suggestion. Harry's detention with Umbridge were finally over. He doubted whether the words now written on the back of his hand would ever fade entirely. Ron had had 4 more Quidditch practices and not been shouted at during the last two, and all three of them had managed to vanish their mice in Transfiguration. Hermione had actually progressed to vanishing kittens before the subject was broadened again on a valid blustery evening at the end of September, when the entire of them were sitting in the library, looking up potion ingredients for Snape. I was wondering, Hermione said suddenly, whether you had thought any more about defense against the dark art, Harry. Of course I have, said Harry grumpily. Can't forget it, can we? With that hag teaching us. I meant the idea Ron and I had. Ron cast her an alarming, threatening kind of look. She frowned at him. Oh, alright, the idea I had been about you teaching us. Harry did not answer at once. He pretended to be pursuing a page of aesthetic antonyms because he did not want to say what was in his mind. The fact was that he had given the matter a great deal of thought over the past fortnight. Sometimes it seemed an insane idea, just as it had on the night Hermione had proposed it, but at others he had found himself thinking about the spell that had served him best in his various encounters with dark creatures and Death Eaters, found himself in the fact subconsciously planning lesson. Well, he said slowly, when he could not pretend to find Asiatic antivenom interesting much longer. Yea, I have thought about it a bit, and said Hermione eagerly. I don't know, said Harry, playing for more time. He looked up at Ron. I thought it was a good idea from the start, said Ron, who seemed keener to join in this conversation now that he was sure that Harry was not going to start shouting again. Harry shifted uncomfortably in his chair. You did listen to what I said about a lots of it being luck, didn't you? Yeah, Harry, said Hermione gently, but all the same, there is no point pretending that you are not good at defense against the dark arts, because you are. You were the only person last year who could throw off the Imperious curse completely. You can produce a patrons. You can do all sort of stuff that full-grown wizard can't. Victor always said. Ron looked around to her so fast he appeared to crack his neck, rubbing it. He said, yeah. What did Vicky say? Oh, said Hermione in a broad voice. He said Harry knew how to do stuff even he didn't, and he was in the final year of Drumstrap. Ron was looking at Hermione suspiciously. You are not still in contact with him, are you? So what if I am? Said Hermione coolly, though her voice was a little pink. I can have a pen pal if I didn't only you want to be your pen pal, said Ron accusingly. Hermione shook her head exasperatedly and ignoring Ron, who was continuously to watch her, said Harry, well, what do you think? Will you teach us? Just you and Ron? Yea. Well, said Hermione, now looking a minute anxious again. Well, now don't fly off the handle again, Harry, please, but I really think you ought to teach anyone who wants to learn. I mean, we are talking about defending ourselves against Voldemort. Oh, don't be pathetic, Ron. It doesn't seem fair if we don't offer the chance to other people. Harry considered this for a moment, then said, yeah, but I don't even expect you to would want to be taught by me. I'm not remember. Well, I think you might be surprised how many people will be interested in hearing what you have got to say, said Hermione seriously. Look, she leaned toward him. Ron was still watching her with a frown on his face, leaned forward to listen to. You know, the first weekend in October, first Hogsmeade weekend. How would it be if we tell anyone who is interested to meet us in the village and we can it over? Why do we have to do it outside school? Said Ron, because said Harmony, returning to diagram of Chinese accompanying cabbage she was copying. I didn't think Amrich would be very happy if she found out what we were up to. Harry had been looking forward to the weekend trip into Hogsmeade, but there was one thing worrying him. Cyrus had maintained a stony silence since he had appeared in the fire at the beginning of the September. Harry knew they had made him angry by saying that they did not want him to come, but he still worried from time to time that Cyrus might throw caution to the wind and turn up anyway. What were they going to do if the great black dog came bounding up the street toward them in Hogsmeade, perhaps under the nose of Draco Malfoy? Well, you can't blame him for waiting to get out and so about, said Ron when Harry discussed his fear with him and Hermione. I mean, he's been on the run for over 2 years, hasn't he? And I know that can't have been a laugh, but at least he was free, wasn't he? And now he's just shut up all the time with that lunatic elf. Hermione scolded at Ron but otherwise ignored the slight of creature. The trouble is, she said to Harry, until Voldemort, oh, for heaven's sake, Ron, come out into the open. Cyrus is going to have to stay hidden, isn't he? I mean, the stupid ministry isn't going to realize Cyrus is innocent until they accept that Dumbledore's been telling the truth about him all along. And once the fools start catching real Death Eaters again, it will be obvious Cyrus isn't one. I mean, he hasn't got the mark. For one thing, I don't reckon he'd be stupid enough to turn up, said Ron brazenly. Dumbledore had go mad if he did, and listen, Cyrus, listen to Dumbledore even if he doesn't like what he hears. When Harry continued to look worried, Hermione said, listen, Ron, I have been sounding out people who we thought might want to learn some proper defense against the dark art, and there were a couple of who seemed interested. We have told them to meet us in Hogsmeade, right? Said Harry vaguely, his mind still on Cyrus. Don't worry, Harry, Hermione said quickly. You have got enough on your plate without Cyrus too. She was quite right, of course. He was barely keeping up with his homework, though he was doing much better now that he was no longer spending every evening in detention with Umbridge. Ron was even further behind with his work than Harry, because while they both had quiz practice twice a week, Ron also had perfect duties. However, Hermione, who was taking more subject than either of them, had not only finished all her homework but was also finding time to knit more real clothes. Harry had to admit that she was getting better. It was now almost always possible to discuss between the hat and the socks. Morning of Hogsmeade visit dawned brightly but widely. After breakfast, they queued up in front of Leach, who matched their names to the long list of students who had permission from their parents or guardian to visit the village. With a slight pang, Harry remembered that if it hadn't been for Cyrus, he would not have been going at all. When Harry reached Fleet, the creature gave a great sniff at though trying to take a whiff of something from Harry. Then he gave a curt note that set his jaw acquire again the Harry, and Ron walked on out into the stone step and the cold sunlight day. Why was Flea sniffing you? Asked Ron as Harry, and Hermione set off at a brisk pace down the wide drive to the gates. I suppose he was checking for the smell of dung bombs, said Harry with a small laugh. I forgot to tell you. And he recounted the story of sending his letter to Cyrus and Fletch bursting in a second letter, demanding to see the letter. To his side's surprise, Hermione found the story highly interesting, much more indeed than he did himself. He said he was tipped off you were ordering dumb bombs But who had tipped him off? I don't know, said Harry, shrugging. Maybe Malfoy. He had think it was a laugh. They walked between the tall stone pillars topped with winged bird and turned left onto the road into the village. The wind winking their hair into their eyes. Malfoy said Hermione very seriously, well, yes, maybe, and she remained deep in thought all the way into the outskirts of Hogsmeade, where we are going anyway. Harry asked the three broomstick. Oh no, said Hermione, coming out of her reveries. No, it's always packed and really noisy. I have told the others to meet us in the Hogshead, that other pub, you know, the one he is not on the main road. I think it's a bit, doggy. But students don't normally go in there, so I don't think we'll be over it. They walked down the main street past Zonko's joke shop, where they were surprised to see Fred George and Lee Jordan pass the post office from which Owly shoot at regular intervals and turn up at a side street at the top of which stood a small inn. A battered wooden sign hung from a rusty by a bracket over the door with a picture upon it of a wild boar, several head licking blood onto the white cloth around it. The sign cracked in the wind as they approached. All three of them hesitated outside the door. Well, come on, said Ron, Hermione slightly nervously. Harry led the way inside. It was not at all like the three broomsticks. The large bar gave an impression of gleaming warmth and cleanliness. The Hogshead bar comprised one small, dingy, and very dirty room that smelled strongly of something that might have been God's. The windows were so encrusted with grime that very little daylight could permeate the room, which was lit instead with the stub of candles sitting on rough wooden table. The floor seemed at first glance to be earthly, though as Harry stepped onto it, he realized that there was stone beneath what seemed to be the accumulated fifth of centuries. Harry remembered Hagrid mentioned this pub in first year. You get a lot of funny folk in Hogshead, he had said, explained how he had won a dragon egg from a hooded stranger here at the time. Harry had wondered why Hagrid had not found it odd that the stranger kept his face hidden throughout this encounter. Now he saw that keeping your face hidden was something of a fashion in Hogshead. There was a man at the bar whose whole head was wrapping in dirty grey bandage, though he was still managing to gulp endless glass of some smoking fiery substance, though a slight over his mouth. Two figures shrouded in hooded sat at the table in one of the windows. Harry might have thought the Dementors if they had not been talking in stone Yorkshire accent. In a shadowy counter beside the fireplace sat a witch with a thick black veil that fell to her toes. They could just see the tip of her nose because it caused the veil to protrude slightly. I don't know about this harmony, Harry muttered as they crossed to a bar. He was looking particularly at the heavily veiled witch. Has it occurred to you Umbridge might be under that? Hermione cast an appraising eyes at the well figure. Umbridge is shorter than the women, she said quietly, and anyway, even if Umbridge does come in here, there's nothing she can do to stop us. Hurry, because I have double and triple checked the school rules. We are not out of bound. I specially asked Professor Flitwick whether students were allowed to come in Hogshead, and he said yes, but he advised me strongly to bring our own glasses, and I have looked up everything I can think of about study group and homework group, and they are definitely allowed. I just don't think it's a good idea if we parade what we are doing. No, said Harry dryly, especially as it's not exactly a homework group you are planning, is it? The barman sidled toward them out of the back of room. He was a grumpy looking old man with a great deal of long grey hair and beard. He was tall and thin and looked vaguely familiar to Harry. What? He grunted. Three butterbeer, please, said Hermione. The man reached beneath the counter and pulled up three very dirty bottles, which he slammed on the bar. Six sickle, he said. I'll get them, said Harry quickly, passing over the silver. The barman's eyes traveled over Harry, resting for a fraction of a second on his card. Then he turned away and deposited Harry's money in an ancient wooden till whose drawer slid open automatically to receive it. Harry, Ron, and Hermione retreated to the fastest table from the bar and sat down, looking around while the man in the dirty grey bandage rapped the counter with his knuckle and received another smoking drink from the barman. You know what? Ron murmured, looking over at the bar with enthusiasm. We could order anything we like in here. I bet that block would sell us anything. You wouldn't care. I have always wanted to try fire whiskey. You are a perfect, sneered Hermione. Oh, said Ron. The smile faded from his face. Yeah. So, who did you say is supposed to be meeting us? Harry asked, wrenching open the rusty top of his butterbeer and taking a swing. Just a couple of people, Hermione repeated, checking her watch and then looking anxiously toward the door. I told them to be here about now, and I'm sure they all know where it is. Oh, look, this might be them now. The door of the pub had opened. A thick band of dusky sunlight split in the room in two for the moment and then vanished, blocked by incoming rush of crowd of people. First came Neville and Dean and Lavender, who were closely followed by Parvati and Padma Patil, and Harry's stomach did a backflip. Chao and one of her usual gleeing girls' friends. Then, on her own, and looking so dreamy that she might have walked in by ancient Luna Lovegood, the Catty Bale, Alicia Spinett, and Angelina Johnson, Colin and Dennis Grave, Ernie McMurray, Justin Fitch, Flatley, Hannah Abbott, and Hufflepuff girls with a long plait down her back, whose name Harry did not know. The Ravenclaw's boy he was pretty sure were called Anthony Goldstein, Michael Corner, and Terry Ward. Ginny followed by the tall, skinny, blond boy with an upturned nose, whom Harry recognized vaguely as being a member of the Hufflepuff Witch team, and bringing up the rear Fred and George Weasley with their friend Leah Jordan, all three of whom were carrying large paper bags crammed with Zonko's merchandise. Couple of people, said Harry hoarsely to Hermione. Couple of people, yes. Well, Barda seemed quite popular, said Hermione happily. Ron, do you want to pull up some more chairs? The barman had frozen in the act of whipping out the glass into a rag, so it looked as though it had never been touched. Possibly he had never seen his pub so full. I said Fred, reaching the bar first and counting his companions. He had 20 companions. That glared at him for a moment, then throwing down his rag irritably as though he had been in something very important. He started passing up dusky butterbeer from under the bar. Cheers, said Fred, handing them out. Cuff up, everyone. I haven't got enough gold for all of this. Harry watched numbly as the large chatting group looked into beers from Fred and rummaged in their robes to find coins. He could not imagine what all these people had turned up for until the horrible thought occurred to him that they might be expecting some kind of speech. At which he rounded on Harry. What have you been telling people? He said in a low voice. What are they expecting? I have told you. They just want to hear what you have got to say, said Hermione soothingly. But Harry continued to look at her so furiously that he added quickly, you don't have to do anything yet. I'll to them first. "Hi, Harry," said Neville, beaming and taking a seat opposite Harry. Harry tried to smile back but did not speak. His mouth was exceptionally dry. Cho had just smiled at him and sat down on Ron's right. Her friend, who had curly reddish blonde hair, did not smile but gave Harry a thoroughly mysterious look that Harry plainly that gave her away. She would not be here at all. In twos and threes, the new arrivals settled around Harry, Ron, and Hermione, some looking rather excited, others curious. Luna Lovegood gazing dreamily into space. When everybody had pulled up chair, the chatter died out. Every eye was upon Harry, said Hermione, her voice slightly higher than usual, out of nerves. "Well, hi." The group focused its attention on her instead. The eyes continued to dart back regular to Harry. Well, you know why you are here. Well, Harry here had the idea. Harry had thrown her a sharp look. "I had the idea that it might be good if people who wanted to study defense against the dark arts, really study it. You know, not the rubbish that Umbridge is doing with us." Hermione's voice became suddenly much stronger and more confident. "Because nobody could call the defense against the dark art here, said Anthony Goldstein, and Hermione looked heartedly. "Well, I thought it would be good if we, took matter into our own hands." She paused, looked sideways at Harry, and went on. "And by that, I mean learning how to defend ourselves properly, not just theory, but the real spell." "You want to pass your defense against the dark art, owl?" "Oh, I bet," said Michael Corner. "Of course I do," said Hermione at once. "But I want more than that. I want to be properly trained in defense because she took a great breath and finished because Lord Voldemort's back." The reaction was immediate and predictable. Chow's friend shrieking and slopped butterbeer down herself. Terry Wood gave a kind of involuntary twitch. Padma Patil shuddered, and Neville gave an odd yelp that he managed to turn into a cough. All of them, however, looked fixedly, even eagerly at Harry. "Well, that's the plan anyway," said Hermione. "If you want to join us, we need to decide how we are gonna do that." "Here is the proof you know who is back," said the blunt Hufflepuff player in the rather aggressive voice. "Well, Dumbledore believes it." Hermione began. "You mean Dumbledore believes him?" said the blond boy, nodding at Harry. "Are you?" said Ron, rather rudely. "Zachary Smith," said the boy, "and I think we have got this right to know exactly what make him say you know who's back." Look at Hermione interestingly, swiftly. "That's really not what this meeting was supposed to be about." "It's okay, Hermione," said Harry. It had just dawned upon him why there were so many people there. He felt that Hermione should have seen this coming. Some of people, maybe even most of them, had turned up in the hope of hearing Harry's story firsthand. "Make me say you know who's back?" he asked, looking Cassari straight in the face. "I saw him, but Dumbledore told the whole school what happened last year, and if you didn't believe him, you don't believe me, and I'm not wasting an afternoon trying to conceive anyone." The whole group seemed to have held his breath while Harry spoke. Harry had the impression that even the barman was listening in. He was whipping the same glass with the 50 rag. It was becoming steady dirtier. Zanskri said humorously, "All Dumbledore told us last year was that Cedric Diggory got killed by you know who, and that you brought Diggory's body back to Hogwarts. He didn't give us detail. He didn't tell us exactly how Diggory got murdered. I think we had all like to know. If you have come to hear exactly what it looked like, then Voldemort murdered someone who can't help you." Harry said, His temper, always so close to the surface, this was rising again. He did not take his eyes from Zachary Smith's aggressive face, determined not to look at Chow. I don't want to talk about, said ridiculously. All right, so if that's what you are here for, you might all clear out. He cast an angry look in Harmony's direction. This was, he felt, all her fault. She had decided to display him like some sort of trick, and of course, they have all turned up to see just how wild his story was. But none of them left their seat, not with Zachary Smith, though he continued to gaze intently at Harry. So, said Hermione, her voice very high pitched again. So, like I was saying, if you want to learn some defense, then we need to work out how we are going to do it, how often we are going to meet, and where we are going to. Is it true? Interrupted the girl that Tom played down her pride looking at Harry that you can produce a patrons. There was a murmur of interest around the group at this. Yes, said Harry slightly defensively. A cold polar patrons. The phrase stirred something in Harry's memory. You don't know Madame Bones, do you? He asked. The girl smiled. He's my auntie. She said, I'm Susan's Bones. She told me about your hearing, so is it really true you make us statue patrons? Yes, said Harry. Blimey, Harry, said Lee, looking deeply impressed. I never knew that. Mom told Ron not to spread it around, said Fred, grinning to Harry. She said you got enough attention as it was. She's not wrong, mumbled Harry, and a couple of people laughed. The girl was sitting alone, shifted very slightly in her seat. And did you kill a basilisk with that sword in Dumbledore's office? Demanded Terry Boat. What sword? That's what one of the portrait on the wall told me when I was in the last year. Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, said Harry. Justin flinched. Leslie whistled. The Crevery brothers exchanged a struck look, and Lavender Brown said wow softly. Harry was feeling slightly hot around the collar now. He was determinedly looking anyway but Chow. And in our first year, said Neville to the group of large, he saved the sorcerer's stone. Sorcerers, his Hermione. Yes, that from you know who, finished Neville. Anna Abbott's eyewear as round as gallows, and that's not to mention, said Chow. Harry's eyes snapped onto her, said she was looking at him, smiling in his stomach. Did another some sort of the task he had get through the Travezard tournament last year, getting past Dragon and mere people and Acromaturd and things. There was a murmur of impressed agreement around the table. Harry inside were swimming. He was trying to arrange his face so that he did not look too pleased with himself. The fact that Chao had just praised him made it much harder to for him to say the thing he had sworn to himself he would tell them. Look, he said, and everyone fell silent at once. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be modest or anything, but I had a lot of help with all that stuff. Not with the dragon. You didn't, said Michael Corner once. That was serious cold bit of flying. Yeah, said Harry, feeling it would be churlish to disagree. And nobody helped you to get rid of Daventer this summer, said Susan Bones. No, said Harry. No, okay, I know I did beat of it without help. That point I'm trying to make. Are you trying to whistle out of showing us any of this stuff? Said Jansri Smith. Here is an idea, said Ron loudly before Harry could speak. Why don't you shut your mouth? Perhaps the word whistle had affected Ron particularly strongly. In any case, he was not looking at Zacharias as though he would like nothing better than a thumbs him. Zacharias flushed. Well, we have all turned up to learn from him, and now he's telling us he can't really do any of it. He said, "That's not what he said," sneered Fred Weasley. "Would you like us to clean out your ear for you?" equipped George, pulling a long and lethal looking metal instrument from inside and out of Zonko's bag. "Or any part of your body, really. We are not fussy there, we see this," said Fred. "Yes, well," said Harmony hastily, moving on. "The point is, are we agreed we want to take lesson from Harry?" There was a murmur of general agreement. Zansaris folded his arm and said nothing, though perhaps this was because he was too busy keeping an eye on the instrument in George's hand. "Right," said Harmony, looking relieved that something had at least been settled. "Well, then the next question is how often we do it. I really don't think there is any point in meeting less than once a week." "Hang on," said Angelina. "We need to make sure this doesn't clash with our quiz practice." "No," said Chow, "nor with others, nor ours," added Chancery Smith. "I am sure we can find a night that Cyrus anywhere," said Harmony slightly impatiently. "But you know, this is rather important. We are talking about learning to defend ourselves against Voldemort's Death Eaters." "Well said," barked Ernie Macmill, whom Harry had been expecting to speak long before this. "Personally, I think this is really important, possibly more important than anything else we'll do this year, even with our owl coming out." He looked around impressively, as though waiting for people to cry. "Surely not." When nobody spoke, he went on. I am at the loss to see why the ministry has foisted such useless teacher upon us at this critical period. Obviously, they are in denial about the return of you know who, but to give us a teacher who is trying to actively prevent us from using defensive spell. "Well, think the reason Umbridge doesn't want us trained in defense against the dark art," said Hermione, "is that she's got some mad idea that Dumbledore could use the student in the school as a kind of private army. She thinks he's mobilized us against the ministry." Nearly everyone looked stunned at this news. Everyone except Luna Lovegood, who piped up, "Well, that makes sense. After all, Cornelius Fudge has got his own private army." "What?" said Harry, completely thrown by this unexpected piece of information. "Yes, he got an army of heliopaths," said Luna solemnly. "No, he hasn't," snapped Hermione. "Yes, he has," said Luna. "What are heliopaths?" said Neville, looking blank. "They are spirits of fire," said Luna, her protuberant eyes widening so that she looked madder than ever. "Great tall, flaming creature that gallop across the ground, burning everything in front of." "They don't exist," Neville said, Hermione tartly. "Oh, yes, they do," said Luna angrily. "I'm sorry, but where the proof of that?" snapped Hermione. "There are plenty of eyewitness accounts. Just because you are so narrow-minded, you need to have everything shown under your nose before you," said Ginny in such a good imitation of Professor Umbridge that several people looked around in alarm that they laughed. "Weren't we trying to decide how often we are going to meet and get defense lesson?" "Yes," said Harmony at once. "Yes, we were. You are right. Well, once a week sound cool," said Lee Jordan. "As long as," began Angelina. "Yes, yes, we know about the quiz," said Harmony in a tense voice. "Well, the thing to decide is whether we are going to meet." This was rather more difficult. The whole group fell silent. "Library," suggested Catty Bill after a few moments. "I can't see Madam Prince being too cheerful with us doing jinx in the library," said Harry. "Maybe as unused classroom," said Dean. "Yes," said Ron. "McGonagall might let us have hers." She did when Harry was practicing for the Triwizard, but Harry was pretty certain that McGonagall would not be so accommodating this time. For all that Hermione said about study and homework to being allowed, he had the distinct feeling this one might be considered a lot more ridiculous, right? "Well, we'll try to find somewhere," said Hermione. We'll send a message around the everybody when we have got a time and place for the first meeting. She rummaged in her bag and produced parchment and a quill, then hesitated, rather as though she was telling herself to say something. I think somebody should write their name down just so we know who was there. But I also think she took a deep breath that we all out to agree not to shout about what we are doing. So if you sign, you're agreeing not to tell Umbridge or anybody else what we are up to. Fred reached out for the parchment and cheerfully put down his signature, but Harry noticed at once that several people looked less than happy at the prospect of putting their name on the list. Said Zachary slowly, not taking the parchment. Then George was trying to pass him. Well, I'm sure Ernie will tell me when the meeting is. But Ernie was looking rather hesitated about sign too. Hermione raised her eyebrow at him. I will. We are perfect, Ernie burst out. And if this list was found, well, I mean to say, you said yourself if Umbridge find out. You just said this group was the most important thing you had do this year, Harry reminded him. Yes, I said Ernie. Yes, I do believe that. It is just, Ernie, do you really think I had left this list lying around? Said Hermione testily. No, 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 of course not, said Ernie, looking slightly less anxious. Yes, of course, I'll sign. Nobody raised objection after Ernie, though Harry saw Charles' friend give her a rather reproachful look before adding her name. When the last person, Zacharis, had signed, Hermione took the parchment back and slipped it carefully into her bag. There was an odd feeling in the group now. It was as though they had just signed some kind of contract. Well, time's ticking on, said Fred briskly, getting to his feet largely, and I have got items sensitive nature to purchase. I'll be seeing you later. In 2 or 3 of the rest group took their leave too. I made rather business of fascinating patch on her back. Friends stood beside her, arm folded, clicked her tongue so that Chow had little choice but to leave with her. As her friends ushered her through the door, Chow looked back and waved at Harry. Well, I think that we're quite well, said Hermione happily as she, Harry and Ron walked out of the Hogshead into the bright sunlight. A few moments later, Harry and Ron, still clutching their bottle of butterbeer, that's Cherish Block's word, said Ron, who was glowering after the figure of Smith, just discernible in a distance. I don't like him much either, admitted Hermione, but he overheard me taking to Arnie and Hanha at the Hufflepuff table at the second really interesting in coming. So what should I say? But the more people, the better really. I mean, Michael Corner and his friend could have come if he hadn't been going out with Guinea. Ron, who had been draining his last few drops from his butterbeer bottle, gagged and spread butterbeer down his front. His what? Said Ron, outraged his own, now remembering Pearl, Aphrodite Reef. She's going out with my sisters going. What do you mean, Michael Corner? Well, that's why he had his friend came, I think. Well, they are obviously interested in learning defense, but if Ginny hadn't told Michael that what was going on, when did this? When did she? They met at the Yule Ball and they got together at the end of last year, said Hermione composedly. They had turned into High Street and she was outside Scriff's soft quill shop where there was a handsome display of peasant feather quill in the window. I could do with a new quill. She turned into the shop. Harry and Ron followed her. Which one was Michael Corner? Ron demanded furiously. The Dark One, said Hermione. I didn't like him, said Ron at once. Big surprise, said Hermione under her breath. But said Ron, following Hermione along a row of Will in corner pot. I thought Ginny faced Harry. Hermione looked at him rather pityingly and shook her head. Ginny used to fancy Harry, but she gave up on him month ago. Not that she doesn't like you, of course, she added kindly to Harry while she examined a long black and gold quill. Harry, whose head was still full of Charles' parting wave, did not find the subject quite interesting as Ron, who was positively quivering with the indignation, but it did bring something home to him that until now he had not really registered. So that's why she talked now. He asked Hermione. She never used to talk in front of me. Exactly, said Hermione. Yes, I think I'll have this one. She went up to the counter and handed over 50 sickles and 2 nuts, not still breathing down her neck. Ron, she said severely as she turned and tore on his feet. This is exactly why Ginny hasn't told you she is seeing Michael. She knew you had take up badly, so don't harp on about it. For heaven's sake, what do you mean who is taking anything badly? I'm not going to harp on about anything. Ron continued to chunder under his breath all the way down the street. Hermione rolled her eyes and hurried and then said in an undertone while Ron was muttering imprecations about Michael Corner. And talking about Michael and Ginny, what about Chow and you? What do you mean? Said Harry quickly. It was as though boiling water was rising rapidly inside him, a burning sensation that was causing his face to smart in cold had been that obviously well, said Harmony, smiling slightly. She just couldn't keep her eye off you, could she? Harry had never before appreciated just how beautiful the village of Hogsmeade was. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.